call the meeting to order. Let's do roll call, please.
Hankins?
Here.
Triplett? Here. Sires?
Here.
Bowersox?
Yes.
Olfest?
Here.
Vogel?
Here.
Dees?
Here.
Okay, thank you. Approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting is written.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Are there any public comments? Anyone in the audience that's not on the agenda that would like to speak? Okay, thank you. Okay, let's move on then to our approval of the P&Z Commission meeting minutes for October.
Make a motion that we approve those minutes as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Our first, it would be the recommend council approve the final plat for Hout Plat 1. Okay, Kathleen?
Yeah, I can discuss that if you like.
Yes, please.
This is a final plat. You guys previously approved a preliminary plat for this 2-lot subdivision that's located in the extraterritorial jurisdiction on North Sheldall Drive. The final plat is in conformance with the approved preliminary plat, and so staff's recommending approval of it, subject to the developer signing a development agreement covering the cost of future water main along Northwest Sheldall Drive prior to the final plat approval.
Any discussion?
Straightforward.
Okay. No discussion? Anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve House Plat 1, subject to staff recommendations. Second.
Get them so they're kind of cold, so I'll be right down.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Sires?
Yes.
Bowersox?
Yes.
Olfest?
Yes.
Vogel?
Yes.
Dees?
Yes.
Hankins?
Yes.
Triplett? Yes.
Okay. Get rid of this paper. Okay, moving on, we'll do the final plat for Creekview Estates, Plat 2.
Jenny, I can't tell. Is there someone there from the developer who's going to present that, or?
He will, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Josh Trickstead, 34, or Civil Design Advantage, 3405 Southeast Crossroads Drive, Grimes, Iowa. On behalf of North Polk Development, we're requesting your recommendation of approval of Creekview Estates Plat 2. Pretty simple plat. It's basically the next phase of the Creekview development. You've approved the whole, or I guess council approved the entire preliminary plat a few years ago. Basically, the second phase of it includes 15 single-family lots and includes the extension of Wolf Creek Drive, Meadows Court, into a knuckle. And basically, it's single-family lots that range, as Kathleen notes, 8,250 square feet all the way up to 1,700 for the larger pie-shaped lots off the knuckle. As for improvements, pavement's been completed. I believe the only thing remaining is some carriage walks for the mailbox pads and then some spreading of black topsoil and stabilization. The contractor's hoping to get that done next week. We just want to pursue P&Z now instead of waiting all the way till end of December. Other than that, I don't think we have any disagreements with staff's or Snyder's recommendation or comments. Oh, I guess I should also note most of the legal documents have went through the attorney in the last couple of days, and those should be ready to go. At this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Kathleen, were you able to hear that, and do you have anything to add?
Yeah. Yeah, I could hear that. I agree with everything there, that everything is in order for this to move forward to City Council for final approval. The recommendation, the subject twos, I guess, and the recommendation would still be the same as were included in our November 9th memo. However, I guess I should say that under the final plat review comments, that comment number 2 has been addressed.
So it sounds like this is in conformance with the preliminary plat, and as I look at it, most everything, or really everything here is a yes, no item that needs to turn to yes for council. But
No more questions, and you want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we recommend to council approval of the final plat for Creekview Estates, plat number 2, subject to engineer and staff's comments dated, staff's comments and recommendations dated November 9, 2021.
Second.
Roll call.
Dietz.
Yes.
Hankins.
Yes.
Triplett. Yes. Stires.
Yes.
Bowersox.
Yes.
Olfest.
Yes.
Vogel.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
This is approve the site plan amendment for Casey's.
You skipped one.
What?
You skipped item
Oh.
8.
Oh, number 8. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, the final plat for Four Seasons Polk City.
Good evening, Jared Ruckel, MJR Developments, and we have for you the Four Seasons Plat 1. There's 24 lots. They range in size from half acre to about 1.5 acres. All really nice residential lots. We've substantially completed all the public improvements, moving the street, most of the sidewalks. We're finishing up sidewalks along Hub Drive. That's really the main thing that's left. We've got a walkthrough scheduled for tomorrow afternoon for this development, and for council next week. The site improvements, like I said, include streets, water, sewer, storm sewer, and then a dry detention basin, which will serve the entire. I can answer any questions.
Jared, the only question I had, is there a cluster mailbox with that development?
There is,
I
yes.
just didn't see it shown, but it's probably somewhere. I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Okay. Where is Outlet Y? I just didn't see that. Talk about Outlet Y. Outlot Y
Outlot Y would be some excess land to the north.
to the north.
Yeah.
Okay. Done. Oh, I got you. Okay. Okay. Kathleen, do you have any comments? Just under our review comments, under the final plat drawing, comment number 1 has been addressed. The other 2 comments will need to be addressed before this goes to council, along with either the completion of construction or an agreement to complete, and our recommendation section. All those items that are listed in the recommendation would be applicable for this project, including provision of a development agreement and the city attorney's review and approval of all legal documents, and either council's acceptance or public agreement to complete punch list items, and that no building permits would be issued for any lot within this plat until the public improvements have been accepted.
Any more questions?
Just like the last one, it sounds like it was built per the preliminary plat and that all of the items listed here are yes, no items that can't go to council until they're turned to yes.
Correct. Yep.
We have a motion.
I'll make a motion that we recommend to council approval of the final plat, Four Seasons, Polk City, plat 1, subject to engineer and staff's comments dated November 9, 2021, and also recommendations.
Second.
Roll call.
Olfest,
Yes.
Vogel,
Yes.
Dietz,
Yes.
Hankins,
Yes.
Triplett,
Yes.
Cyrus,
Yes.
Bowersox.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're on to site plan amendment for Casey's. Kathleen, do you have anything?
Kathleen,
Yes?
do you have anything for Casey's?
No, hang on a second, let me pull up my memo. We just had a few review comments, that need to be addressed. A few of those have been, with the exception of we need to see a revised alignment of the sidewalks, so that the crosswalk is located a little bit closer to the street. But as you'll see, the site plan itself includes sidewalks along both Third and Bridge Road. So, it's just, we're asking them to tweak the alignment, so that the crosswalk is a little bit closer to the street. And we're asking for a little bit more definition on the radius of the, for the proposed driveway, on Third Street. We had provided some information to the developer showing some rutting that was occurring at that driveway. So we want to make sure that the driveway, the new radiuses that are going in are large enough that you won't have that driveway, or that you won't have that rutting at the driveway, and that it will be designed so the vehicles don't need to cross into the painted median. The other, I guess, item that's not been addressed is that we haven't received a full sign packet for review. However, they did, just before packets went out, provide details that were included in the packets that show the intention. So we just need to review the square footages and know, how many signs they're proposing. It looks like they're proposing a sign or signs on the gasoline canopy. In total, that sign area can't exceed 25 square feet. And then they've got at least one, if not more. I don't know for sure if they're proposing a Casey's sign on either the north or the south side of the building. They've got one on the front, but we just, again, need to make sure the total square footage of all signage does not exceed the sign ordinance. It doesn't appear like it will, so I think we're probably in pretty good shape there, but we do need to see the actual, the full packet. And I'm waiting to hear back for sure from the fire chief on the location of the fire hydrant. Proposing a fire hydrant near the southeast corner of the building, and I'm kind of thinking that the fire chief may want that closer to the parking stalls rather than behind the shrubs, just to make it more accessible. So kind of a minor tweak there, but I'm waiting to hear back from him.
So Kathleen, you had talked about the painted median on Third, and then earlier in the document, you talked about the median island, referred to it as the median island when Hy-Vee goes in.
Correct.
What is the timing of any of that, and is that, truly waiting for Hy-Vee's project?
Yeah, the construction of the median island would be Hy-Vee would be doing that as a part of their project. So that would be next year, is my understanding on that project.
Okay, and when the raised median island would go in, then there'd still be plenty of the turning radius.
Well, yeah. Yeah, well, I mentioned the painted because that's there, but yeah, that would be the same would hold true. Obviously, when there's a raised median, that the turning movement would be reviewed based on that as well.
Hy-Vee's tentative open date is September of 22, so I would assume they'd be aiming for that time frame.
Kathleen, question, did we check the ramps on both Bridge and Third to make sure they're kind of doing the common square but not going from there out to the road? Are those compliant with current standards? They look at
Yes.
that or, okay,
Yeah, those ramps were actually installed with the Signal project.
Okay.
So those ramps aren't old, they're
okay, they're newer
relatively
ones
new.
then.
Mhm. Yeah, the common square is a 5-foot common square, so the sidewalks that are going in with this project will be 5 foot wide on both streets, based on the new standards.
Additional questions, comments? We have a motion.
I'll make a motion that we recommend to council approval of the site plan amendment for Casey's, subject to engineer and staff comments dated November 11, 2021, noting that this motion does not include any approval for any signage package.
Second,
Okay, call.
Vogel,
yes.
Dietz,
Yes.
Hankins,
Yes.
Triplett,
Yes.
Sires,
Yes.
Bowersock,
Yes.
Olfest.
Yes.
Can I ask a question about the signage? I know we have restrictions on exterior signage, what goes outside the building. But if a sign is on the inside in a window, that's okay, no matter what it is. Is that correct or not?
My understanding is anything on the front of the building or anything visible is considered a sign, whether inside or out. Now, if it's facing into the interior, that doesn't count. But if you can see it from outside, it counts as part of your signage.
I had a question. It's not about this, it's about another. I bring it up now or bring it up later, so,
Yeah, we can talk about it after
Oh,
the meeting. Will
okay.
that work?
after the meeting?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
fine, thank you.
Moving on to the comprehensive plan recommendation and responsibilities update. Is Kathleen?
Kathleen is going to discuss major streets plan and discuss potential overlay districts. Kathleen, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I can. Hopefully you can hear me. I can hear most of you fairly well. Yeah, I don't have anything formal to prepared at this point on this because, quite frankly, I wasn't quite sure what the goals were for overlay districts. So I guess I wanted to get some feedback from P&Z. There's a variety of purposes for overlay districts, but typically it's when the city wants to impose standards that are above and beyond your normal zoning code for a specific area. As one example, you've kind of already got that when you think of the floodplain overlay district. The general regulations hold true, but then there are additional regulations that are imposed by FEMA floodplain. Other examples of overlay districts are the city of Pella, as one example, uses what they call gateway overlay districts, where they have an overlay district along certain major arterials in their city where they have specific requirements for those, and they do vary from street to street. As an example, there are certain streets where they require the stores to be set in front with parking in the rear, as one example of their requirements. So again, part of it is down to, what is it you want to accomplish? What kind of standards would you want to be imposing, and then discussing where those would be, and then we can kind of come back to you with some suggestions. Other districts, some cities do have, either less restrictive or more restrictive architectural design standards. Yours are already pretty, restrictive in the sense that they require 60% brick on all facades facing the street, and then 50% on the backside. So those are fairly restrictive already, but you certainly can require certain design elements as well on a specific district. But again, part of it, then there are obviously overlay districts that are imposed by developers as they're putting together their development project, and they kind of, some of it comes with agreements between the developer and the city for what those design standards might be. An example of that is kind of a lot of the Prairie Trail overlay, design standards in Ankeny. They have quite a number of design standards relating to the architectural palette and a lot of things that way that go above and beyond just a brick requirement. But that was kind of a mutual thing between the city and the developer, as opposed to the city just imposing those requirements on a development. So that's kind of some of the examples. But again, I'm hesitant to come back, and spend time or whatever to put together some discussion or some food for your consideration without having some initial input and direction, and then we can kind of come back to you with that. But this was kind of brought up by P&Z as something that they were interested in implementing. So, but again, without the direction, I'm not sure, which way you want to go. So if you want to have just some discussion about that, and we can come back with some options. But I don't know which areas of town you were looking at as an overlay district. I have seen cities where they do put overlay districts, for example, around something like the square, but since you've got a separate zoning district for the town square, I don't know that would need an overlay district. If you want to change the zoning regulations or modify those zoning regulations, you possibly could do it just to the actual town square zoning district rather than an overlay. One of the other things that they do, it's kind of related when we talk about parkways. As an example, if you look at the land use plan, you'll see that the parkways the streets, major streets plans, the parkways are highlighted. And for example, West Bridge Road is not shown as a parkway, but from the bridge to the square, to the signal at 3rd and Bridge. That could be added as a parkway. We've kind of been requiring street trees to go in along there, but as an example, the old Luana Bank was not required to put any street trees in. So if that ever came in for redevelopment, if it was designated as a parkway, at least you could get some trees along that street. That might be one place that I can think of where you may want to add a parkway requirement, which is not exactly the same thing as a zoning overlay, but they do a little bit of the same function other than parkways, just to essentially define where you would have you'd have a requirement for street trees specifically. So I guess I'm throwing it open to input.
Well, I guess I'll speak first. I wasn't totally sure what you were asking for, so I guess I would like to have a little time to think about it, maybe bring it up again next month, unless somebody has any correct thoughts right now. I think it deserves some time to really look. I don't think there's a rush on this, is there, Kathleen, as far as having a little more time to look at it? Now that you've explained it, I know what you're looking for there better, and I think
I feel the same way. And actually, it sounds like this might be a project that would be good, just like a workshop meeting or something.
Yeah,
Kind of
I agree.
just have this one item, and just kind of focus on it and talk about this.
Yeah, and I was hoping to have a little bit more of a workshop on it, but with me not being there, that doesn't work as well. But at least I wanted to bring it up, and staff did too, just to at least kind of get it out in front of you so you can think about some things that you may want to think of. And like I said, in looking at the make sure as you're doing it, that, like I said, that you're looking at the parkways, which would be requiring the planting of street trees is the major thing there. And then if there's something above and beyond that you might want to have a specific requirement. Like I said, one of the things that I've seen fairly regularly is if there was an area where you wanted to have the commercial buildings in front and the parking in the rear. I don't know, right off the top of my head, I don't know that there's a specific area in the city that would necessarily lend itself to that, but that may be something that we look at in certain growth areas as you look at future commercial developments in areas where it, like for example, if you had a corner, if you wanted to have the commercial, almost more of I'll say it gives you kind of a little bit more of a main street downtown where you have maybe sidewalks and sidewalk cafes and that kind of thing on the street side with parking in the back. But that, I don't, like I said, you'd have to almost think about new development areas where you might have that kind of a thing as opposed to necessarily, it's a little late, for example, to try to get that along Bridge Road,
Kathleen, are there additional requirements along a major arterial, like along a parkway or not?
Not really. I mean, it varies. I mean, like I said, some cities have requirements for street trees, and in certain areas they have requirements, for, like I said, the buildings out front rather than, where the buildings are set back and the parking's in front. But that's usually where you're looking for a more urban type setting. So again, it's kind of where you would be looking at that kind of a setting. They have that. Well, obviously they're in the area in kind of. I'm not even sure what you call the area. I apologize. But it's kind of near near the new High D in Ankeny, where they've kind of got the main street there, and they have the commercial buildings, and it gives them the feeling of a more of an old town main street rather than a new commercial strip center. They also use that in Somerset Village in Ames, if you're familiar with that at all, which is kind of north of the campus, but quite a ways north of the campus, in a newer development there. And then the question is both of those projects were worked on with a developer as opposed to just the city imposing it as a requirement. So it may be that you soften it where it's encouraged or something that way rather than total requirement. But again, that's kind of open to discussion.
If we table this for another date, what time frame are we looking at here?
Typically the commission does not meet in December. That is all dependent on if there is something that needs to be discussed on the agenda. So December 20th would be the next meeting we'd probably cancel. But then the commission would meet on the 17th of January. We could just plan to have a workshop that night. More than likely, we won't have much for business items.
I think
Would like to do that?
That makes sense. And I guess the other thing I was wondering if there are any other requirements for like a gateway. I don't what that means. Anything on this current plan that would have current additional requirements, I'd like to know that ahead of time.
Okay.
So gateway would be your entrance to Polk City, so where the signs customarily are.
Gotcha.
So that's why you'll notice where the purple is on Highway 415 is where the sign currently is.
Okay.
It will more than likely be moved farther towards 44th Street.
Well, and just to correct, it's not just the sign location. Gateways are typically an entire roadway. So, it would be an arterial street entrance. So it's more than just a spot. It's typically a corridor. So one of your gateways into town, as an example, is West Bridge Road, from the sports complex into probably to Third Street. That's a gateway. It's a way people come into your community.
Yeah, so that
So
type of
you would have
information would be
one kind
helpful.
of on the southeast side of 415 as well. When you're coming in from Ankeny, you'd have one from the north on Sheldall Drive as you're coming from Sheldall. Eventually, you'll have one on 44th Street would be coming in from the north, or from I apologize, whatever the street is that winds up tying into Whitetail Parkway. That's 126th Street, I believe.
And they're
That goes out to
identified,
35.
they're identified on the major streets map is why he's
Yes.
asking.
Yeah.
Well, I would say we could table it till then, and
Yeah, I
everyone's
think,
okay with that. January, give us some time to think about it
Okay,
for workshop.
okay.
mhm.
I would like to have another workshop with the city council, and I wonder if that might be something they would like to provide feedback for, so we might look into doing like our dual workshop that night.
Perfect, yeah.
Okay. You guys remember we did that earlier this year and said we were gonna do it annually, so,
Yeah, it'd be a good
Okay.
idea.
okay.
Now, did I understand, is Kathleen, are you gonna send us some points, talking points or whatever?
Yeah, we could put something together more specifically to give you some ideas of what
What to
other
do.
communities have done,
Right.
either themselves or in cooperation with developers. I'll make sure you understand the difference there.
Okay,
Because obviously when they're working with the developer, a lot of times they are more extensive because they've got a development concept in place as opposed to just kind of a land use on a future land use plan. It's usually a little bit more, concrete. As an example, they might be at a stage where, like you are with the Schnetzler development over, on the east side of town. That Andy Schnetzler brought forward that was rezoned. That would be an area that you could work with a developer on overlay standards that are a little bit, potentially more restrictive.
okay, then too, when you said that we would, have a workshop with the city council,
Yeah,
would that be on P and Z date or?
I will have to see what works for everyone's schedule. That's how we did it earlier this year, but I will see what works for them and get back to you.
Okay.
I'll give you plenty of notice though.
What do you want us to do? You want us to make a motion to table this?
You don't need to make
Yeah.
a motion. We did, because we were just doing a review. There's no recommendation needed.
Okay. Okay, any more questions or comments?
So that's the overlay district portion that we're going to be meeting on. Are we still going to discuss the major street plan of that? Or are those together?
I thought they were together. Yeah.
Together? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Okay, no more questions. We'll move on then to reports and particulars from our council liaison.
Do you not want to do the future land use plan? We haven't talked about that yet.
Oh. I thought that's, okay. Okay, let's talk about the future land use plan.
Yeah, I mean, again, from my perspective, that may make more sense to do at a work session. However, if anybody has any ideas they want to throw out, might be a good time to at least discuss those in preliminary fashion.
I think what I'd like to discuss with the commission this evening is what the staff has discussed for future commercial land use. And I think if you guys want to continue that discussion as well at the work session, that's perfectly fine, but maybe I could just give you a little bit of information from where the staff's coming from. Okay, so bear with me here. So staff recommends that commercial property be zoned along 44th Street, which is kind of the trend that we have been following. And I think that it probably makes a ton of sense to have some commercial zoning along the High Trestle Trail for when that connection is made. So those would be the two major things that I think the city staff would recommend to the commission for future commercial development. And then maybe have some mixed use. Jenny, where is this area? I don't know what street that is there.
That's the Sheldall Road as it goes north before you get to the High Trestle Trail.
Okay,
So, yeah, this area, so the trail's gonna connect somewhere through here.
through here.
And so you'd have some mixed use up through here to mirror the mixed use here. The concept being, the reason mixed use is maybe you'd only have commercial along the, we'll call it 3rd Street or Sheldall Street Road or near the trail, but you could have residential mixed in.
So continue commercial zoning up through 44th, have some along the High Trestle Trail is kind of what we would probably recommend to the commission. So if you guys want to take some time to think about this too, I think we could discuss all of this at workshop.
I think that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any ideas or thoughts on where you'd like to see more commercial development? Are there any specific areas that you think we should fixate on?
I just have a couple of thoughts, and more for areas, and less so exactly how it would look. But on the light industrial, we have our current light industrial by the city, or by the school rather, that's being built. To me, it would seem logical to try to extend that existing light industrial to the north, so that we don't end up with a small island of light industrial. To me, and we had a lot of light industrial that was previously zoned there, that has been taken up by the school, and then a little bit of the residential development to the east has also encroached. And so, to me, we should try to go back at least as large as in acreage as we were to start with originally, when we did the comprehensive plan, if not even expand that a little bit, since we are starting to get large enough that we have that need. If somebody would come in today and be looking for light industrial with services built with or close by it, I'm not sure what we would have to offer them other than that space. So that's,
You're talking like here?
yes, yeah, in that area.
Okay.
And then just another thought, back when we were hearing about the rezoning and made the recommendation on the rezoning the property off of 44th Street. Yeah, by the way, did that get approved? The zoning off of, in the southeast portion of our city on 44th
For
Street?
Snetzler's?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so that is approved.
So he is in the process of selling the property,
Okay.
and that developer may be tweaking the zoning a bit. So
Okay.
that might be coming to you soon.
And my comment or idea is more related to what we've heard or a couple of the local citizens talk about, and it was to the land that we're currently showing as being commercial, to the south of that, so those little triangle pieces.
Here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Essentially what they were saying was, that land is, very hilly, deep ravines, and is it really conducive to commercial? Whereas if you go to the corner of 44th Street and 415, that land to the southwest of that same intersection is flat. Would it make more sense to have commercial in that area instead of those triangle pieces where the hills are?
Yeah, and Ron, not that you couldn't change it entirely to commercial, just the way the land use plan is set up now is it allows that to be commercial, if sewer's available.
That's that asterisk you see on there,
Yeah,
in the yellow.
In the yellow.
Yep.
There's an asterisk right here.
Okay. And so that was my only comment in that, and that was per something that, like I said, a couple of the residents there were talking about, you know, but where the way the trees were lined up and the ravines were, did that really make sense being commercial in that spot? You know, it's near a major intersection, but, you know, does the land, the way it sits now, is it gonna be able to be developed in that fashion?
And I would go back to the light industrial, I'll just volunteer this information. City Hall takes a lot of phone calls for people wanting to put in storage, like storage places. And per our current zoning, the only place that's allowed is in light industrial. So as you're thinking about light industrial, think about where you want to see storage lots. Because more than likely, when you zone something or you have it identified as light use, that's what's gonna go there. Just because of the high demand of, you know, we live out by the lake and people want boats and RV storage and those kinds of things. And so that's something to consider. Where do you want to see it?
I have a request for Kathleen, if possible. On the future land use plan, none of the roads are really marked. And if they could take the other plan that we looked at, that's got just some major streets on it, if they could put those notes on
Yeah,
this,
good
it'd be a little more helpful to us, because there's an
Oh,
awful lot
sure,
going
yeah.
on there. Good. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions? So then we'll go ahead and do both of these
Yeah,
in January.
yeah, I think those would be good discussion items. Okay.
And so now we have reports from the council liaison.
A little extra pause. Sure. So just to kind of dovetail on these, I love these kind of discussions, and particularly the parkway designation on Ridge Road, I think is a no-brainer, maybe even moving that on parts of Broadway and Third, with regard to the major streets plan. And then the future land use, I think, is exceptionally timely, and to have looking forward to that discussion in January. But I just trying to get ahead of myself a little bit. I completely agree on the piece on light industrial, particularly in that area north of the school / industrial park, whatever you call it now, because I do think we've compromised in an area that we've typically trying to grow commercial land, and for good reason. But I think that makes a lot of sense to do now, especially given seeing that as it's outside the city limits now, as medium density, much rather see. It makes a lot of sense, I think, to have light industrial there, whether it is a storage or whatever, and you know, that allows us to, you know, dictate terms, that's the way to describe it, but to engage, you know, in a proactive manner with something that's cornfield now outside the city limits. This is what we've got planned, and you know, you can come in with a plan that fits into that much easier than one that doesn't. If it doesn't, then we can talk about it, certainly. So I love these conversations. Thank you guys for all the ideas. And we can come to you. I'll speak for my compadres and in terms of, you asked when the meeting, so, on one of your nights, I suppose. All right. So a couple other things to close the loop on some developments that you guys have voted on, talked about. Last meeting we did approve Hy-Vee. I can't remember when last year we talked about that. I think it's a while, but some of the traffic work came back, and Chelsea referenced that and the drainage. So that site plan was approved. I'm guessing you guys get some conversation or questions about if it's still coming, when it's still coming, all that. And like Chelsea mentioned there, I think he said they were gonna try and do some dirt work shortly and then, work spring and summer and open late summer and around that, Labor Day timeframe. Did also approve, I think it was here last time, the Kyle's other lot, west of Come and Go, approved that. Just thinking there's one more, and then we did approve Ledgestone, so typically, I can speak for myself, tread lightly in going against, I know there's 3 votes that constituted voting it down last time, but, aside from voting on a final plat and what that entails versus preliminary plat, I do personally believe it's a good fit. I'm excited for it to go in there. I know there was some dissenting opinion and, appreciate those perspectives, but, did ultimately approve that unanimously. And then the last thing, I'm glad you brought up that we weren't gonna have a December meeting, because that means you're done with me. And, if we do stick to the rotation, somebody else will be here, in January, so appreciate, all your guys' time and input and thoughts and votes. I'll be watching you online, but I'll miss coming to them. Yeah, is there any question?
Thank you for being here every time.
Yeah.
Takes your time as well, so appreciate your input.
Well, you're a good fit because you used to serve on this and you understand it good, so.
Move to what?
But it is a rotation, somebody else is gonna come.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to imply that there would be some, I don't know who it is. You know.
Not off the top of my head.
Yeah. Somebody.
No more questions? Thank you. City manager, anything?
I do not have anything.
Questions from anyone? Yes,
I have 3.
3.
Have we done the elections for next year?
No, it will be on
If we're not gonna have a December meeting,
it'll have to be on the January meeting. I think that's what we did last year.
okay,
So the first meeting of the year was ran by the current, since it's not on this agenda. And then the second meeting of the year is then ran by the new chair.
okay.
And that's not set in stone, right? If something needs to.
Correct.
To, between now and then come,
Yeah.
there may be a
Yep.
meeting, but.
Oh, yeah, okay. But no matter what, it would be January, is what you're saying. It would be in December or next.
Correct.
So at the, I'm asking because I'm not gonna, and I assume I'd probably be up to chair, but, so if we don't have a December, then we vote in January. And after we vote, then that person would take over the chair.
At the
After-
next meeting.
At the next meeting. Okay, gotcha. All right. Thank you. And we talked about a different kind of succession there that is okay with everybody. Okay.
I got the nod last time we talked about it, where we were just gonna create a rotation, so everybody, there'd be a rotation from chair to vice chair to chair. And then a person would move to the vice chair, well, similar to what we do with the council pro tem.
Good. Good. I think that's a good way to do it. So, kind of hard for somebody if they just come on and they have to do it. So, the signage question I had is about the liquor store down here. It's lit up like Hong Kong. And is that all those signs and all those windows? Is that right? Legal? Is that by our ordinance?
We can look into it and get back to you. I don't know off the top of my head.
My understanding, and again, it's a kind of legal question, is that a sign that's inside the window is not considered a sign.
which our building inspector disagrees with that, so that's
Okay,
why I
yeah.
wanna look into
Yeah,
it.
I'm going by a city attorney.
Yeah.
But that's been, that may have changed.
We'll look into it. I'll get you a response back. Does
Okay.
that work?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I remember a long time ago that if it was inside, it was okay.
Yeah, the only thing
Yeah.
I know for certain is that you can't have LED flashing lights.
Yeah, that's what because I think the nail salon, those lights were inside and it was, so are you asking about the amount or the price? Because I know
I'm asking about the amount,
okay,
because there's always a certain size that we limit everybody to, then, suddenly they might have 5 times that, that's right. The amount, and it's. Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
have
mine,
anything against
and
drinking,
just,
but,
one of the things I'd heard before, and again, this will be probably up to Amy to make a legal interpretation, was that's why, if you've ever noticed a Walgreens where they have those big signs lit up, but they're behind glass on their back wall, where it's kind of facing the corner, they did that because it was their way to get around. Because those are almost billboard-sized signs, and that was how they were able to get around it in a lot of communities. And maybe Polk City is worded enough different that that's not the case, but that they found kind of a loophole there.
And normally when you go through a fast food restaurant, I mean, the windows are plastered with, big, huge banners that show what the specials are. Same with a lot of grocery stores. I mean, there used to be an art to people that could paint backwards. And we would go and paint the ads on the inside of grocery store windows.
Right.
And
Well,
I know
if you ever noticed that Jimmy John's on 86th Street in Clive, they have a clear story that is literally for an interior billboard that you can see on both sides of the street.
and it is interpretation on the painting is different than a sign as well. So
Right.
you can paint on a window, make a scene, whatever, or versus a sign that's propped. So we'll get more information.
And also, right.
Correct.
oh, okay, thank you, everybody. The last thing is just curiosity, when I see there's these new sidewalks right across from the school on Broadway, on the corner there, and up and down that whole side of the street, there's no sidewalks, except now they're doing that. It's kind of a vacant lot, kind of turns the corner, goes down to the side. It's right across from the school. It's just up one from Oakwood Drive. Is that something that the city's requiring they do, or they doing that on their own?
We worked with the school to get the sidewalk connected there because it was immediately adjacent to the school. And we were running into the issue of the kids not having anywhere to walk. So the city is doing the work. It's not something that, we typically do, but to make that connection work, we had to install it.
Great, thank
So
you.
that is the one place we will be doing it. Obviously, we take a stance of trying to get sidewalks installed where we can. We just don't have agreements for every property to get them installed. So that one we were able to address. We worked with the school district to do it, and we're going to be pouring it pretty quickly this week.
Okay. Well, I think that's a great idea, because the crosswalk that was put in and allows those kids. That intersection is a real mess when school starts or it's out. And it would be nice, I don't know whose responsibility it is to maybe direct traffic, but if you're coming out of Oakwood Drive and all those people are parked there, you can't get out and you can't get in. And nobody's directing traffic. The flow of traffic that the school has doesn't work. And I know that's not the city's responsibility, but once it's piled out at the street, I don't know if there's anything we can do about it or talk to the school about it. I know the police sit down there. I don't see them out directing traffic, and maybe they're not supposed to, but they do at least sit there.
When we're available.
Yeah.
It's not every single day, but we are trying to work with some better accessibility at the elementary school. We recognize there's some issues. We're going to keep trying to work through them and
Good.
keep posted.
And then the last thing with all the islands at Quick Star, they're still a little hard to see at night, especially when you're turning off Ridge Road on Park.
They're supposed to be painted. The
Okay,
paint's
they're
just
gonna
not,
paint, are
it's
they
like
gonna
a
put
pro,
reflectors on there too?
but it's my understanding that it's a procurement issue.
Okay.
But yes, that's in the plan.
They have a few outstanding items
Okay.
left to address, so
Okay,
they're
good,
not quite 100% complete.
okay. Good. Thank you, that's 4 items. I appreciate everybody's patience.
And I'll add, so one, I do agree on the sidewalk issue, I do agree with the flow on the school and appreciate the conversations, it's, you know, that school's been added, the elementary's been added on far beyond what I think that you had the parking lot for and the bus turnaround and all that, so it is an issue. I think the sidewalk, will help. We've also had, at a more macro level with the sidewalks, had some discussions early last year in our planning that, you know, we got gaps and I think we want to fill those gaps, and it's a sensitive issue to wade into, and there's a complete, opposite approach than the cautionary tale that was Windsor Heights and all the problems that they had with theirs. But, I do fundamentally believe that, you know, if you know, we're building a house, see this as somebody built a house recently that was required to put in the sidewalk, because you did that before, you know, there was a line that 2000 or whatever, 90s, something that didn't have to do that time should be coming, right? If there's, sidewalks, but, it's not a small thing. So I think Chelsea's done a really good job selectively engaging people on where the gaps are more prominent and affecting people based on what we've heard, existing flow. But I think taking the stance that, you know, letting it known that we want sidewalks, you know, everywhere, and because you built in the 80s or 70s or whatever and didn't have to at the time, I mean, that isn't coming eventually. But and there are different ways to do that. Fully acknowledge and respect the fact that it's an expense for whoever it is. Some people may not be able to pay. So, but proactively addressing it, trying to make it as clear as possible is kind of the first takeaway, not implementing you know, this neighborhood by X date thing. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Chelsea, for doing those things. It's nice to know that when you ask a question, somebody says, we're already on it, we're already doing it. That's
We're
good.
trying.
Well, that's okay. I like that. That's great. Thank you.
Yep.
That's all I got.
Okay, then. Anything from the staff? Any? You don't? Okay. And anything else from the commission?
We don't meet in December. This is my last meeting, right? So I'm going off here this year. I've been on this, finishing my 3rd term. It's just time to pass it on. So it's been a good ride, and I know you guys will do a good job going forward.
Thank you.
Have a new
You added
person
a lot.
sometime next year. I don't know whenever they select.
They will make an appointment in December. We'll have that on our meeting agenda, first meeting in December. We have received some applications, so.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank
thank
you.
you.
Yeah.
Been a good member.
Yeah, you've added a lot.
Yeah, and the opposite of what I said earlier, we might make you come to a council meeting for some form of recognition. Because you do deserve it. That sure what they said.
And my term is also up at the end of the year. I have reapplied with an application, so maybe you'll see me.
I had to do that last year, and nobody ever told me whether I was in or not. I just showed up, nobody said anything.
Okay,
Didn't want to
then.
tell you about the debate. That's totally made up.
That's why I was kind of hoping you'd say no.
Okay, if there's no other comments anywhere, okay. Let's
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all